Hey, what's up? It's Jared. So I wanted to do a Notion 6 months in video. It is right around the 6 month mark that I've been using Notion. And Notion has really changed the way that I keep myself organized. And even the way that I've used Notion has changed so much. I went back and watched my first video that I did on Notion, and it was kind of cringy. I mean, I was very new to using Notion. And of course, I have grown a lot. I've put out a lot of Notion content, and I've really just found new and exciting ways to use Notion to organize my life. So I thought I would give everybody kind of a walkthrough, and also keep in mind that this is a constant evolution for me. Notion will continuously be something that I will change and, just make changes to as I progress. It's definitely a really robust system when you use it in the right way. And so it will continuously change as I continuously change as well, and my life changes and progresses and different things come in and out of my life. So my dashboard is an area that I jump into daily. It is not as robust as I would like it to be, but it has the basics that I need to have there right now. For example, I have my daily log entry right here, which is just today's daily log. I've been jumping around with how I utilize and enter in my daily log. A few weeks ago, I did a tutorial on how to 5-minute journal within Notion, and so I've been kind of utilizing the 5-minute journal format now, and I may jump around. One of the nice things I like about doing this in Notion is I can change this out. I'm essentially creating an entry for every single day, and right now I am utilizing this 5-minute journal method for coming in and adding a quote, a thought. I haven't added any images yet today. Some things that I'm grateful for, what would make today great, and then as the day moves on, I will add a few additional things. And then there's also a effectiveness rating that I give myself for the day, and then I tag any feeling attributes for the day as well, just so that I can go back and sort and kind of see the entries that I have for the day and how I was feeling and how all of that plays together. So my daily log is definitely something that's always changing. My master calendar has now become my interactions log. So I was having an issue with having an actual calendar on my phone and then copying all of that stuff over to Notion, and there not being really any difference between my standard calendar on my phone and my computer and my Notion calendar. So my Notion calendar is now more for interaction logging. And so, of course, it is items that have to do with scheduled things, but it's also interactions that I log as well. And I'll get into that as we get into interactions. I'm just going to go alphabetically kind of down my list here, and I promise I won't take too much time. So my assets tracker is something that I just recently did a video on. It was probably the video before this one that went up on how I am tracking the things that I own and their different status in my life and through even the lifespan of the items that I have. And so I'm tracking these things this way, and this is going to be something that is going to be growing a lot throughout the rest of this year. As I interact with different items, I will add them to this list, and eventually it will be a tool where I can manage all of the different things that I own. Of course, when you go in and view one of these items, I can see the date acquired, the area, is it business or personal use, the manufacturer, the status, do I own it now, did I sell it, is it damaged, did I donate it, the type of item that it is, photos of it, documentation or proof of purchase, and then a link to the actual purchase expense itself. And so the asset manager here will be great because now I can keep track of all the things that I have. I'm the type of person where if it's out of sight, sometimes it's out of mind. And I definitely want to make sure that I'm keeping track of all of my items and that I don't forget that I own them. And I may actually come in here and add some sort of a process to where I can check check in with the item as well. Like maybe it's something that I haven't used in a year. Maybe it's time to get rid of it just so that I can maintain some level of minimalism in a life that is very tied into technology, like I currently have. So the next thing is my 2020 goal tracker, which definitely got thrown off quite a bit with all the COVID-19 stuff that's going on. So there is some things that I haven't been able to work on. For example, my private pilot's license. I haven't been to the gym, and I have not done that good of a job of working out at home. But there are some things that I have worked on. For example, my wife and I have tried to maintain some sort of, date night or time to spend together, even though it's been less than normal. We are, in fact, moving to Montana, and that is in process. And I've also been, staying tied into my YouTube channels. And so my goal tracker is still here. It has not changed a whole lot, and there are definitely some things that I did not get a chance to work on yet. Hopefully, after we get moved, because the move to Montana has definitely taken precedence now. That combined with the COVID-19 stuff and having 4 kids that are at home all day long because 3 of them aren't going to school. They're doing it virtually at home. So a lot has really changed, and my goals have kind of had to take a little bit of a back seat. So I also we're going to skip over 3 of them because I'm not really currently using them. I have my client CRM, which I'm going to show, but I apologize. I will have to blur some of it out. My client CRM is where I keep track of the different things that are related to my clients that I'm working with. And I don't typically jump into the CRM too much. This database is what a lot of other items are tied into. So interactions in my calendar will be tied into a client. A project that I'm working on for a client will be tagged and connected to a client. Tasks will be associated to a client. There are lots of different things that can be associated to a particular client entry here. And so this is mainly just a connection point. And so I have my client's name. I have the association, whether or not they're a current or past client, the status, which is dynamically updated based on my last contacted date. And then if I haven't reached out to them in a while, I get a little notification that says time to reach out. I have the main contact and then the billing status with the client so that I can see whether or not they are current or past due, which is a manual thing that I have to update. I also then have my client projects, and so I have a list of projects that are currently opened. I can set their priority. I can set their status. Here is where I would tie it into an actual client, just as we previously looked. I've got the due date. I've got the date created, a dynamic link to tasks, and then there are some other items off to the side here, such as inbox mentions and stuff like that. There's also a link to expenses so that I can link expenses in my expense log to projects that I've worked on for my clients. So it's very easy for me to see if there was an expense that I need to either bill to my client because that's something that I have to bill them for, or maybe it's just a cost of doing business. And so it's easy for me to see why that expense happened. So my coda is something that I have not done well at because typically when I have time for audiobooks and podcasts and stuff like that, it is when I'm at the gym or when I'm driving, and I just haven't had much of that lately. But my coda is where I place ideas or thoughts that come in when I am consuming some piece of content or I have an idea or something like that. So another one is this entry, you don't have, you do. And the quote from Jim Quick is, you don't have motivation, you do motivation. You don't have focus, you do focus. And so I categorize these based on whether it's a thought or an inspiration or an idea, kind of the essential feeling that it gives me. The date is automatically added. I can tag it, which I haven't started utilizing tags in this area yet. And then a checkbox for react. Like, is this something that I need to react to? My daily log, I briefly talked about already. It has changed quite a bit. It used to be a page-based daily log, and then it changed to this kind of simple entry, like I'll just add an entry whenever I have a chance, but I just wasn't consistent at that. And then when I switched back, I wasn't consistent with this kind of 5-minute journal option. And so I've recently just tried to go back to doing the 5-minute journal, getting in there in the morning, getting in there in the evening, and linking up anything that has to do with what's going on in that day. For example, any interactions, I have a date night with my wife. We're going to go, even though we have to quarantine, we can't like go into restaurants or whatever because everything's closed. We're going to go get some drive-through and just probably sit in the car and hang out and talk. And that's going to be awesome because our kids will be watched by my mom and we won't have to worry about it. So there's also links to other things in other databases here as well. And so my daily log is something that I have kind of failed at a little bit lately, but I'm still active with utilizing my daily log in a 5-minute journal style. And of course, I have the 5-minute journal template for you. If you check out the link in the description below, you can see that. And then, of course, there's my older daily log layout as well, if you wanted to check that out. My expense log, I just recently did a video teaching everybody how to create their own expense log. This is something that's new for me. I realized that I just was not doing a good job of collecting all of life's expenses and bringing them together into one place so that I had a good picture of the outgoing expenses and whether or not they're personal or business. This kind of came to I already knew this, but considering we are looking at purchasing a home and needing to kind of get all of our financials in order so that we could present them to get pre-qualified for the best loan that we possibly can, I needed to do a better job at separating all of my expenses and everything and being able to categorize them and not do this at the end of the year or the beginning of the year when it's time to do taxes. So I also have my inbox, which I've not utilized too well. I've actually been using my tasks section for my inbox, and so this is not an area that I've utilized too much. I have some expense accounts that I still need to add, like some credit cards I need to go through and add transactions to my expense log still. So I just have a note in there about that. My interactions calendar is what really has been neat because it's not just a calendar anymore where I have events, date and time, things that I need to be at. It is interactions that I have with clients, with people, and I enter those here. And this has worked out really cool because I can come in here and look at actual interactions. So, for example, I had what is this? Oh, set up electric service at the new home that we're going to be renting for a short period of time in Montana. And so I put that in here. It's linked to an expense. I've got, what happened here as far as, is it personal? What type of communication was it? What's the status? Was it completed? Is it on hold? And so this is very easy for me now to go back and look and see where I was on something. I'm not now going to forget or have to remember, did I get that done? Or where did that call leave off? Or how did that end? Like I have a place now because it's my interactions calendar and I can go back and view all of the things that are on this list and including link them up into purchases. Like I mentioned, there's a deposit that I paid here for electrical service. So if I click on this, it's actually going to link to an expense that is in my expense log, which is pretty cool. We had pizza at my in-laws' house, and so if I look at this one, I've got a receipt for pizza we got from Little Caesars here. And so all of this tying together is this is a part of my brain that I cannot keep these days. I can't keep all of this information in my brain anymore. And so this is the place that I can put in all of my interactions. I can tie them into what they need to be tied into so that I can go back and look and see how each aspect of that interaction interacts with other aspects of my life. I also have links that I've saved, so I'm bookmarking sites and stuff that I want to remember in this section and different resources. I don't do this too often because I don't want it to be a huge mess, but when there is some things that I need to remember that I want to remember, then I will link it up in here. For example, I started following this creator who's also a lawyer she's kind of specific to online creators, and so I just favorited her site or essentially added it to my links here. She actually lives in Montana as well, which is cool, but she focuses on representing and helping out YouTube creators and online businesses and stuff like that. And so I thought, I need to check out more of her information. And so I've been kind of digging into the stuff that she's been putting out, and it's pretty awesome. It's great legal advice. Next is my projects. These are different projects that I'm currently working on. For example, my travel trailer that we bought, we're converting a back corner of it into an office space, and then we're actually going to sell our trailer. We're working on selling our travel trailer right now. It turned out amazing, and I had someone help me with the construction process just so that we can get it done. And so I had this as a project in here. It was in progress. It's actually done, and so I'm going to complete it here in a second. It was high priority because I needed to get this done. What area? It was personal, but I also have different areas here, files that are associated to that project. When was the due date? I've got tasks. I can link it up to my notebook, which we'll look at here in a second. I can link it to my daily log. I then can also link it to interactions that are in my interactions calendar. For example, going to Home Depot for trailer supplies. So that was a trip to Home Depot, and that also links up to the receipt and to communications that I had with Bill, the guy that was helping me out. And then, of course, there's a receipt here for, paying Bill for the help. And then there's updated and created dates. So this is like a master place for my projects, things that I am working on for myself personally and my family, for my personal brand, for my company, online courses that I'm working on and stuff like that. And so since that's done, we'll just go ahead and mark this one as complete. And I guess I don't have the appropriate filter set. I need status is, so current project, status is not archived, and status should not be completed either. Status is not completed. There we go. Now it's working correctly. Under notes, this is essentially my notebook where I'll throw in different things and ideas. This kind of conflicts a little bit with my coda. My coda is where like inspiration and stuff like that sticks. I was utilizing my notebook for all of that, but I started using my coda as a place where I wanted to have things that I can remember easily. My notebook is kind of a dumpster as far as where ideas, thoughts, projects, different stuff that hasn't been worked on. And of course, there are lots of relational databases, so I can link it to a client. I can link it to a project, a client project, my daily log, a specific contact, or an interaction on my calendar. And so that's just a nice way of having all of my notes situated. I also have my personal CRM, which I've talked about before, where I keep track of personal relationships and where I'm at with that. The personal CRM essentially is my contacts, and my contacts is what ties into my interaction calendar and everything else. So just like I have my client CRM that I don't typically come into very often because it's really just a hub for connection. Same with my personal CRM. So an interaction in my calendar may link to a person in my personal CRM, and that's just kind of how that works. And so I don't typically come in here too much other than to update the status so that I can make sure that those red stoplights turn into a nice thumbs up. But that is essentially what my personal CRM is for, is so that I can keep up on those personal relationships. I've talked a little bit about this in past videos. Podcast episodes, my podcast episodes, I have not really been too good at getting started. I built this little podcast episode manager that's kind of like my YouTube video manager that we'll look at so that I can work on putting out more podcast episodes. And just with the nature of the craziness of my home, having so many people home all day long, I just don't have much of a window for utilizing my microphone. I don't have much quiet. So I haven't worked on this too much yet. My task manager is where I am at the most because I'm in here looking at tasks that I need to work on, both in my personal and my business life. And so everything that needs to get done comes in here. Even if I don't have time to categorize it yet, I just throw it in here. I give it a due date. and then later on I will come through and fill out the rest. So my task manager has a checkbox for a done section over here, which is a sort option in another view. I have the task name, I give it a due date, I choose an area, like is it personal, household, one of my companies or one of my projects, status, what's the status, is it next up, in progress, completed, or on hold, is there a priority to it, is it linked to a client? I have some tags, and so a tag may be, is it billable work, a call, an email, marketing related, non-billable, is it personal? Is it a pipeline task, like to get new business? Is it for retained work? So lots of tags there. I also have a notes section, which is kind of counterintuitive right now because this notes section should actually tie into my notebook. This is something that I've battled with, is if I wanted to export this as a spreadsheet, do I want the notes in a column, or do I want the notes linking to another spreadsheet? And that's been the tricky thing with Notion, is just trying to decide that. When you only have one sentence to write, does it really need to be a whole entry in another page? So that's been kind of tricky. I also enter the amount of time that it took me to complete that task after it's done. Is there a web address or a URL to that task? And sometimes it's actually a task to an email or a link to an email. And so this link here will actually open the email in my email app, which is pretty cool. Here we link to my client, like a client project. We link to a YouTube video here. We've got daily log, interaction calendar, 2020 goal, my project, podcast. We've got a file section. We've got an expense here. So if there's an expense associated to this task, and then of course the updated and created date here as well. So there's tons of stuff in here. You can see I don't utilize all of them very often, but they are there because sometimes a video or a task may be related to a video, or a task may be related to a purchase, or a task may be related to an interaction. And so I want all of those things to be able to talk and work with each other. I haven't been utilizing my health or step tracker for a while. That's something I kind of got away from. I was using an app for that before, and I just kind of continued using an app for it because it's more automated. Since I haven't been doing a step challenge like I was when I was doing my 20,000 step challenge a day towards the end of last year, I haven't really been tracking that too well. And so this tracker section is just maybe something that I'll dive back into later. I was tracking when I took my thyroid medication, whether I took vitamins, how long my fasting window was. I rated my food intakes on a score of 1 to 5, checked whether or not I had drank any alcohol, and then put in the date. And so I was utilizing this as kind of a health tracker. I kind of fell off the wagon with that around the time COVID-19 stuff started happening. So yeah, not utilizing that. So YouTube videos, my YouTube video tracker here, where I have my video title, my status of that video, the channel it's for, the publish date, the sponsor, priority, a website address to the YouTube video, tasks that are associated with it, tags that I'm not really utilizing, and any links to actual files. And so these typically are also pages. And so I would come in here, and then I have my outline and some additional information for that particular video. I also put thumbnail images, any logos or icons or social media images that I'm going to utilize in here. So this is probably my heaviest database as far as size goes, because there's lots of big images and lots of information in here for those YouTube videos. And then down below, I just have a 2020 kind of archive section. And then I have my templates, which many of you may have seen. I've got some different templates, like my expense log that you've seen, the 5-minute journal I talked about, my daily log, my advanced goal tracker, my notebook template, and my year-end preview template from the beginning of this year. So that is how I'm using Notion. And I know this was an extremely fast, just blaze through how I'm using Notion. And as you can see, I've utilized it in almost all aspects of my life because it just helps me keep track of everything. And so I hope that this kind of quick look through how I'm utilizing Notion 6 months after having started using Notion, I hope that it helps you out. Of course, a lot of these things have videos that are associated, so check the links in the description below, and you probably saw some cards up in the top corner of the video that showed up as I was talking. Make sure to check out some of those other videos. And if you have any questions at all, definitely leave a comment below this video. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon so you can be notified when I put out more videos. I hope all is well with you. Until next time, take care.